Infrastructure Committee meeting to be open. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Where's the flag?
Right there.
Whoop, don't fall on your butt.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is where we all scream.
Please be seated.
Next, we have the roll call. We have
Marty Tarr,
Marty Tarr,
Dale Cook.
Drew
Jim
Martin.
Tyler,
Drew Martin.
Drew Martin. Jack Redford is not present. We have Commissioner Jasinski.
Our liaison.
Next, we have the adoption of the agenda. We have a
I move to adopt the agenda as written.
second.
Okay, we're open for public comments. No comments from the public.
We're here to hear your ideas.
All right.
We're tired of drowning.
Need approval of the minutes of January 10th, 2023.
I move to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
I'll second it.
I second.
Okay.
Jim, after you second, you gotta vote.
Huh?
You gotta vote.
Oh, back to vote. All those in favor of adopting the agenda?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes.
Same thing on the minutes.
Minutes.
Now we have the approval of the minutes from the January 10th, 2023 meeting.
We gotta vote.
You've done that?
No, we haven't voted yet.
Okay. So we need
We've already got a
Motion to
motion and a
approve.
second.
a second.
We already have that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The first item on the agenda, and the only item, is to discuss and possibly vote, make a recommendation to the town commissioners regarding the proposal from Remington Burdick Engineers for an infrastructure project to not to improve the flooding, but to lessen the flooding. Can I change that word from improve to lessen?
Improve to what?
Huh?
Right, because we wouldn't want to improve flooding, we want to
Improve
lessen.
flooding.
Right, we don't want to improve flooding, we want to improve
You
drier.
want to lessen the flooding?
Yes, yes. So I move to strike that word to and change it to lessen.
I second it, but we've already approved the minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okey dokey, so, I guess we're open for discussion.
I guess Bill Zoper couldn't be here today, correct?
I don't know.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, he's not gonna be here at all?
No.
Oh, that's fine.
Before we get, I just have to make this statement, I mentioned it to Drew. I have a cochlear implant over here. It's not working that well. I get a lot of feedback. You probably make a lot of statements here that I just won't understand very well,
Gotcha.
okay?
So we have to speak up.
Yeah, speak up.
Jim, does it help if you're seeing the speaker?
Stand?
Does it help you if you can see the speaker?
If you can read their lips, is it better face to face?
Yes,
Okay. I have a question.
okay.
I was stating a question. I'm a big mouth.
Look at it.
We have gone around and around about Reed Street for many years. And every time we have not a different company, but different people having proposals, and a lot of different companies. We've had flapper valves, we've had bladder valves, we've had inside the pipe, we've had at the end of the pipe. What is the difference on this contract? It says flapper valve installation, and then it said tide gate. Do you know if there's a difference? I understand a flapper valve, the water pressure coming off the street when the tide is lower, the water pressure opens up the valve and the rainwater drains out off the street. And then when high tide comes, the flapper valve closes and stops the tide from the water from running up the pipe, the drain pipe into the street.
Well, I would say that whether you call it a tide gate or a flapper valve, or whether it's at the end of the pipe or installed within the pipe, its function is to prevent ingress of water. They're saying that the one that's being proposed is designed for underwater operation somewhere. Oh, what is it? And this description, it's a pressure thing. If you got the tide at one level, and you got water up here in the pipe, it's got to be so high so I can force the gate against the water pressure against the gate. So that works better at the end of the pipe rather than inside the pipe.
If I could make a suggestion.
That's what happens.
Jim, if I could make a suggestion, Remington Verdict's on the phone, and you've got this question that I think they could probably give a crisp answer to. So since you've got the people on the phone who can potentially give you the detailed answer.
Didn't know they were on the phone.
Yeah.
They're on the phone. Remington Verdict, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want to invite them in to talk about that? I see one guy's unmuted already.
Kevin?
Yes, good afternoon.
Oh, there you are.
Kevin, did you hear the question that I asked, or the roundabout question that I just asked?
I did hear it. I also have one of my coworkers, Nick Lusner, who can actually show you some mapping if we need it. And I also have Matt Zanukny from SPS on the line as well, who can speak to this. Right now, the quote is for one of three proposed options. The first being the 3 HDPE West Atlantic tide gates, which in essence, to Jim's point, are flapper valves. They're mounted. This specific valve was designed to go on the end of corrugated plastic pipe, which you have at the end of reed, 3 of them. They're 36-inch diameter. And these would be external valves that would flap, but they would be tidal. In other words, to Jim's point, they're flapper valves that will work with the tide. So when the tide's high, they're going to stay shut to prevent the bay from backing up into Reed Street. And then when there's enough head pressure coming down from, ultimately Coastal Highway running down Reed through the pipes, and they hit those valves, especially during lower tide, those tidal gates will open and allow that rainwater, that rain event to empty into the bay.
So let me interrupt you for a minute. Let me interrupt you. So what I thought was something different or the same thing, the tide gate and flapper is a flapper valve, is that right?
It's a tidal flapper valve, correct.
And you're proposing to put it at the end of the pipe.
Right. That was always our recommendation, is these things should be where you can see them, make sure that they're operating, and if they're not, you can maintain it versus something that's enclosed within the junction box as before.
Kevin, Kevin,
Yes, sir.
I would lessen the confusion if they said instead of flapper gate installation, you would call it tide gate installation. Because you did, under flapper gate installation, you have install 3 transit tide gates. So are we talking apples and oranges? I feel that we should be consistent with tide gate.
So I'm going to invite Matt to jump on the call.
Mr.
Matt,
Risk, can we do that?
speak to that.
Yes,
Somebody calls it a tide gate.
Yeah. But
It's not.
a tide gate is a flapper valve. The same thing.
I mean, if we can change the terminology, but it's a tidal gate valve, basically, that has, that's, has a flap.
So the difference then is that it's still a flapper valve like we had or have had, and we're moving it from where it was inside the pipe to the end. Correct?
Yes, that's the proposal. However, because right now, what exists are corrugated black plastic pipes. These are designed, and they're West Atlantic tide gates. They're made of the same material as your current pipe, so that they're designed to adhere to and be fastened to those existing plastic pipes. If they were reinforced concrete or metal, it would be a different application, different flapper tide gate valve, if you will. But because these are plastic, we found this West Atlantic company that actually designs a flapper tide gate valve that will mate or marry to the end of these existing pipes. We did look at something more conventional, but then you'd have to replace the plastic with reinforced concrete, and it's just one of those mushroom clouds that kept getting bigger and bigger. So I know, working with Jim and Bill, we wanted to keep the expense as manageable as possible, and still try to deal with this problem that you're having on Reed Street.
So how frequently will those, and I know I'm asking a pie in the sky question, but how frequently are those flaps going to get trapped by sand? The same sand that's not working with the flaps inside the pipe.
And again, Matt, you can jump on if need be, but
Yeah, I will jump in because we recently had someone drive down to the job site just to confirm that these pipes were 36-inch diameter, because it just still baffles me how they're that big. And we did confirm it while we were there, but we also confirmed that these pipes seem to be half full of silt again. And I'm not sure why. Probably maybe because there was no flapper valve, maybe because the storms, and even though we've put this riprap up, we think a lot of sand is probably pouring in from up above it, personally, somewhere. But so when you say how fast will they get silted up, we think they will get silted up, on the outside. That's why we were talking about putting something on the outside, because if they get silted up, it's easy, obviously, to clean out the outside and fix them rather than having to go inside the pipe and fix them. Now, I will add that Kevin has recently talked to me about some alternative options, like using these pieces of rubber on the outside as well. And, I don't know if it's a better option. It might be a cheaper option. And I think that they may be harder to have silt built up on the outside of them. My concern is with them is that they do have silt built up on the outside of them. You'd actually have to clean them out immediately to make sure things are flowing.
so I don't know, folks, if you can see on the screen, what Matt was speaking to, I did discuss with Bill before he left, as well as with Jim. Apparently at the end of Rodney, in a parking lot area, this was a solution that they had implemented, where they had these rubber like you can actually see it. They mount on the outside. And it's almost like a rubber bladder valve, if you will. Obviously, when there's pressure pushed up against it, and again, these are mounted on the inside. They do have internal mounted versions as well. But you can see where the bay was pushing against it, that bladder would close and actually stay compressed versus when you have a rain event, it would come through from the upland side coming down. It would force that bladder to then open during a low or lower tide event to let that rain event out. I don't have a lot of experience with these. They are considerably cheaper, but I do not know, and I can research this further at the town's request, how what their durability is. And also, Matt, I don't know if you found out if they come in a 36 or larger size. I would think that they would, but these are an external, like a rubber bladder type of membrane valve that's mounted on the outside. In this case, it's a head wall with wings. They also have, as you can see, an internal version, which I'll tell you folks, I'm really concerned about putting something on inside a junction box where you cannot see it. We went to great lengths and you guys spent a lot of money to reconfigure that baffle system of the riprap, where we created that multi-tiered system in an effort to try to keep that sand more on the outside or detain it before it enters that box. And there is
Let me interrupt you for a minute. I apologize, but your picture personally is off to the side, and I'm missing some of the facts myself. But those bladder valves or duckbill valves, whatever you want to call them, we had them. They were the second valves that the town put on many years ago, and they didn't work.
well,
We had constant problems with them.
and that's on the outside, and I don't think they're meant to be a long-term permanent solution. Bill Zopel asked me to research this because he had seen this at the end of being installed at the end of Rodney. So we did. I prefaced this before I started speaking. I don't have any experience with these. I'm not sure how much Matt does. But I'm not surprised you had problems with them. Our experience is with the tidal gate flapper valves. They're proven to work. And again, we're trying to accommodate what's already there existing as your current condition. And in this case, you have 36-inch diameter HDPE black plastic pipe.
So before we confuse everybody any worse than I have already, what you're recommending is flapper or tidal valves or flapper valves at the end of the pipe so they can be accessible and clean out if we have to.
Right, so if I can continue to share my screen. If you can see this, folks,
There we go.
these are drawings. These, and Matt, jump in if I misspeak on this, but these are the West Atlantic plastic tidal flapper valves. You can see the top view, you can see the front view, and then the side view, which again allows rainwater in a rain event to push the valve open, but then they'll come closed. As you can see over here, if the bay were to rise and then force that shut. Should you see sand or debris or driftwood get jammed in there, and obviously with nor'easters, you're going to get that. You can see it, identify it, and remove it, maintain it so that it operates or doesn't get damaged or can be repaired. We designed the riprap in such a way, and if you recall, when we did the redesign of the riprap, our intention was to put these valves on at the same time. We were asked to not do that, to remove the valves, just monitor it. Obviously, you're experiencing flooding. But we dug right at the throat or at the at the low point or invert of those 3 outfalls that come out off of Reed, there's about a 4-foot depression there, almost like a tub area where if any sand gets through those baffled riprap configurations, it will collect there and have to physically rise before it enters into the outfalls. That was done by design. What Matt's reported is that has occurred already. So, but it's on the outside, and as I said at the when we began this, and Bill and Jim agreed, we're recommending at least twice a year that a vac truck come in and back that out and clean it as a matter of regular maintenance, to make sure that these would stay in operation. So no matter what's done, that has to be done going forward. That maintenance, that cleaning has to be performed. But these are the specs. This is the only company we found that actually makes these types of valves that will mate and marry. It's plastic, 2 plastic, and in your case, you have 3, again, plastic outfall, 36-inch outfall pipes, which is why we found a valve that will mate or marry or can be mounted, excuse me, to the end of those existing pipes. And Matt, you can speak more to it if you wish, as far as the installation and what you have to do to prep for it. But this is like your Cadillac or most expensive. The bladder valves would be next, and
Yeah, so I'll go on the installation. What happens is if you're where his mouse pointer is at on that little screenshot right there, that's what slides inside of the pipe. It's about 18 inches long. It slides into the existing 36-inch HDPE pipe that's there. And then we basically drill some holes and we screw it in, to my understanding. That's a really expensive product. I think our price estimate from the product was like about $25,000 to $30,000, including delivery. So when he says your Cadillac, that's the Cadillac price. And we do not have experience installing these particular type of tide gates because they're rubber tide gates going inside of a plastic pipe. And I don't know the amount of force coming in and out of that, but I have had several people look at it and they do believe that they will work for a long-term process. Whereas the installation of this one is very different than the other ones. The other ones is like a metal, if Kevin could go back to that other picture, is a metal Fernco that wraps around the pipe. For the I'm talking about the rubber ones, Kevin.
Oh, okay. All right, hold on. Let me
These rubber ones are just a Fernco that goes on the outside of the pipe that kind of you ties a band and then you screw them into place. So to me, that rubber band one has a little bit less strength on it because you're not drilling through the pipe, if that makes sense. You're just going on the outside of the pipe to tie it in. So it's something that if we were to go in this direction, I'm not opposed to going in either direction, but I would request that we look into the amount of force that's being used if we would be worried about that metal band popping off on a big rainstorm.
The other thing too that concerns me and Dale, you mentioned about you had bad experience with these anyway, but just to further the point, these are mounted on RCP pipes. We're mounting these to existing plastic pipes, which obviously is flexible, more giving. So you could torque this to your heart's content. You might even collapse the existing outfall pipe to make these work, which may not work. Whereas if I can.
And Kevin, do you have a picture of the one that I found online that was looked like a regular tide gate, but just used a regular Fernco?
I do. So we also did some research and found this. Can everybody see this on your screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, this was yet another option, and the first, the ones we talked about, the $25,000 ones, that's the Cadillac. the rubber bladder valve was kind of like your mid base model. This would be your economy model here that you're looking at. This is Drainage Solutions, Inc. This actually shows a metal band, a compression clamp, if you will, that would be torqued down. It's actually shown on plastic plate. It's made to fit. Right here it says a flap gate, 36-inch for corrugated plastic pipe. Now, Matt, I don't think this is tidal. This is strictly gravity. So it has a simple hinge on the top. It closes up. So if there's any, if you can see it better on this side, if there's any head pressure coming from, I'm going to say, Coastal Highway down to the end of Reed into the bay, that force would have to pop this open. And then when it's done, it would close back up, and any force from the bay coming the opposite way would then keep it closed. But this is strictly a gravity mechanical system. It's a very simple design, but with that, you're going to have to keep after it. But obviously, you can see the cost just to buy it is more economical. This would be your economy model. And if you would indulge me, folks, Nick, I'm going to ask you to, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to ask you to jump on and show the map that shows that stretch of Reed from Coastal Highway down to the bay, because I want to show everybody the infrastructure that we've mapped. You don't even have 3 foot of fall from Coastal Highway to Reed. I'll let Nick show you the mapping we've done for that part of Dewey.
And just so you know, I think Jeremy is on the phone now as well. Jeremy is our director of operations, and he has probably the most experience in our company performing these types of repairs. Should you guys have any more questions?
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we hear you. So if you're looking, folks, can you see this? Can you see the map on the screen?
Can we see it?
Can everybody see the map on your screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
We can see it, we can't read it.
So Nick, I want you to zoom in to Coastal Highway. Okay, there you go. So zoom in tighter, Nick. All right, so you're at Coastal Highway in Reed, right here at this intersection. We have the different assets labeled. You have your catch basins, your manholes, but for sake of argument, we're going to start at catch basin 33. Actually, no, let's start at catch basin 34. So you're just coming in off of Coastal Highway, going toward the bay down Reed. You have a great elevation at 34 of 3.16 is your elevation at the grate. And your your invert in and out, you're already at a 10th below sea level. So you have double 18-inch pipes, and we show them exaggerated so you can actually see it and read it. And you see your slope is 0.144%. And now you're coming down to catch basin 36, rates 204, 4/10 and 5/10 respectively, invert. So keep going. You have double 18s, keep going down. Now you're at catch basin 39. Now you're at negative a foot and maybe 3-4 inches below sea level, invert, and your grade is at a foot above. Now it transitions from 18 to 15, which is a problem in and of itself, but that's what's there. But these have all been relined. So
CIB did that,
Right.
the 3-pipe thing.
So now you're going to 15s, and these are RCPs, and these were relined. So your velocity is good. So now your grade's at 1.25. You're at a negative 1.7 invert, and from your junction box to the 3 outfalls, you're at negative 1.75. So you have very little fall to get that head pressure going anyway, which in essence, what I'm showing you is your pipe is not flat, but almost flat or very little fall over this run. I mean, it definitely, the velocity goes from Coastal Highway down to the bay. But, it's at the steepest angle it could be, given the bay elevation, the elevation of Coastal Highway, and your slope from along Reed Street in between.
So do you guys mind if I ask a question?
I can't hear you.
Do you mind if I ask a question?
Yeah, I want to.
Okay, so Nick, you just went over the elevation and the drop with us. Want to understand, that's got to not only get the water out, but occasionally stuff gets washed into these drains, including a lot of sand, a lot of debris, all that kind of stuff. And we've had, not just on these, but all over town, we've got issues with stuff clogging these drains up. Are you kind of telling us, when you're talking about the minimal grade distance, that no matter what we do, we're going to have a problem with debris in those lines? And more importantly, when you put whatever bladder, gate, flapper at the end of it, there's going to be less pressure when you have less of a grade on the pipe, because the water's not flowing as fast. So you guys are the pros. I need to understand, is the grade insufficient to make these types of things work well, to basically keep those pipes reasonably clear where we can maintain them and expect to be able to have people come in, as you said, once or twice a year or whatever?
No, the grade is sufficient, but I think you hit the head, is provided they're kept clean and free of debris. They've been relined with that resin product, so in actuality, their velocity is actually improved because you have a smooth interior wall to carry that rainwater. But like anything else, provided you maintain it, you keep it clean. I call it, as long as you change the oil every 3,000 miles, it will perform the way it was designed to perform. But you need a lot of head pressure to get those bladders to work.
Right.
And to Dale's point, I think you've had experience with those and not working in the past. That would not be our first recommendation. Our first recommendation would be the tidal gate flapper valves that were designed to put at the end of the pipe that would mount onto the plastic.
Can I say something?
Sure.
So the thing is no matter what you do, those gates are only going to work on an outgoing tide. So anytime the bay water is higher than the gates, it's going to keep them closed. And it'll only work when there's more water inside the pipe than there is on the outside of the pipe. That's the way they're designed. So if you get a heavy rain and the tide is up, you're still going to have a water issue, but that's going to happen no matter what because of the elevations, what you just described in the drawing there. But the best way to keep the sand and the debris out is the flapper gates, because it's going to prevent anything from going back up inside the pipe.
So
Maintenance is the key, though. You got to maintain the outfalls of these gates in order for them to continue to work. And we discussed that last time when I was down at the meeting with you guys. You know, there's nothing you can do to prevent the sand and stuff when you have storms from it building up on the outside of the outfalls of the storm drains. So it's got to be maintained.
I want to understand one more thing, because we want to support whatever you guys are doing, right? But there's a lot of history here, kind of going back at least 10 years on trying to come up with various solutions. And just a couple of years ago, you know, we got this engineered solution with the barrier and the bladders inside the pipe and whatnot. One person provided feedback saying, you know, that it worked like a charm when it was done, and then it stopped working. So I want your guys' feedback on, do you think, from a professional point of view, that solution worked at the time of installation? And if so, why did it stop working?
In my opinion, and Jeremy could probably back me up on this because he actually saw it. When it was brand new and put in, it worked fine. But when you had that sand and debris, I believe it was a nor'easter. In fact, just to kind of backpedal a little bit, when we started doing this project and mapping Dewey in this phase one, as we called it, and identifying the pipes that were candidates to be relined and the cleaning and the televising, we actually stopped at, if you look on the drawing here, the 3 outfalls, which are the red dots, and then you see the purple junction box, which is the existing junction box. The green one is the new junction box and the new outfalls, the new piping going out to the bay. That was under construction when we were doing phase one. We purposely didn't even do that because it's brand new construction. There's no need, it's brand new work. Well, the year following its final installation, you had a nor'easter, which jammed up the valves internally. They got clogged with sand and prevented them from operating to their maximum degree, fully, I should say. Because no one could identify A, that it was a problem, and B, it was hard to get to because they were inside that green junction box. So fast forward, our recommendation has always been to put external valves on there, like Jeremy said, so A, you can see they're operating, B, maintain them if they're not, and C, make sure they're kept clear. I'm not a proponent, we are not a proponent of putting anything like in a box that you can't see and identify. We're prepared to do that, but we were asked by the committee, let's hold off, let's monitor it and look at it. Unfortunately, what's happening now is, like Jeremy said, when the tide's up in the bay, those valves are shut. If you have a rain event, the rain's not going to go out because the pressure on the outside is going to keep them shut. However, the good thing about it is you're only retaining the rain event. You're not also adding bay water coming in on top of it because it's being shut and kept out, provided that they're kept clean and operating to their maximum capability, which again, if you can see them and you can see them on the outside, you can do that.
Let me add something if I could. I'm a resident on Reed, in all transparency, been there for 9 years now, before the work was done by Center for Inland Bays. So I saw what it was like before they did the work, after the work, I see it every day. And the problem that we saw, the work that was done by Center for Inland Bays was really more about water quality and the runoff and cleaning up that water than preventing flooding on Reed. That really what I saw, because the flooding on Reed did not change that much from when they did it from before. We had asked, I know Dale was involved probably 8 years ago. We had asked just to do a simple berm, put a berm up to stop some of the high tides from coming in. We couldn't even get that done.
Finally,
I want to add that I agree. I'm not seeing this project from the beginning like you have, but I believe no matter what we install, I'm not sure what will ever get rid of that issue.
Well, let me finish. So Bill Zolper, I know, has been working diligently with the state of Delaware to try to get funds for a pump. And that was proposed 10 years ago by Jim Laird, who was a councilman at that time. And I don't know, I think Diane might have been the mayor. And it was determined that really with the fall, that was the only way to move the water out of there. You're talking about these flaps. You need the back pressure to move that water out through the flaps. And I know I'm sorry he's not here. I know he's working on this pump, but when you listen to everything you guys are saying, I do not see any solution that's not gonna not involve a pump that's gonna provide enough pressure to get that water off the street and push it through those valves, if the valves are there. I mean, you're talking about another $63,000 in this, another $16,000 twice a year to clean them. I think if there was enough back pressure, it might help with keeping the pipes cleaned from a pump. I just feel like, my opinion, with the money that was spent by Center for Inland Bays. Then again with this, I think it was another $30,000 spent on the riprap system to try to keep the sand out of the pipes. That's with this, that's $90,000. If a pump's $1 million, I think we're just keep throwing money at this project, and the problem is never really solved.
Can I say something?
Sure.
So even if you get a pump, you're gonna need the gates to keep the sand out. So the pump will work when the tide is up and you have a rain event. That's the only reason you would need a pump if you have the flapper gates. So the flapper gates serve one purpose. They keep all the sand and debris out, and they keep all the water, storm water out. Every time the tide goes out, whatever water's in there will drain out. Now, the problem is when the tide is up and it rains. So no matter what, even if you put a pump in, you still got to put some kind of gates on those pipes, because the pump would be right there before the outfall in that box, and it gets full of sand if you don't do something. From any kind of major rain event, you're going to get sand coming up in those pipes.
I have a question about the pump. Where exactly would the pump to?
It's going to go out the same way. The pump is going to pump the water out through the pipes that are
Through
there.
the pipe.
So basically what Bill was talking about was dropping nothing like Bayard Avenue, nothing like the big pump they put in Bayard, but a smaller system that in that concrete box where the old flapper valves were, possibly there. And then that would give it the pressure to move this water out when he was just talking about maybe there's a high
Back
tide.
into the
The bay, into the bay.
Right out.
Right out there, not running it through the marsh. I know you have a problem
Yeah, I've
with
got a
running
real
it through
issue
the
with that,
marsh,
yep.
but you know, all the water from the entire town now is coming into Reed. So
And it always has been.
it's a town problem that
Right.
unfortunately there's not enough voices, because it's mostly single family houses. There's not a lot of full-time residents there. And so a lot of the town doesn't seem to be affected by it, other than people coming down and taking pictures when the street floods. So, but everybody, all the new development in town that's been going on, which is causing more non-permeable surfaces, which is causing more runoff, which is causing more rain, more water to funnel into Reed, it's got to be addressed. And whether he's going to get the money from Delaware or he's got it, the town's got to come up with the money, that there's got to be a way to get the water off the street. And the flat valves were there before, even after they finished the project, Center for Inland Bays. I'm a fan of Center for Inland Bays. I have no problem with them, but the street was still flooding. And it will continue to flood if we get a big nor'easter or hurricane. There's nothing we can do about it. The Bayard pump got overwhelmed, and when we had the big nor'easter last fall. I mean, that's going to happen, but we're talking about trying to move the nuisance water off the street so people can get to their places at the end, cars aren't flooded, that kind of thing.
And actually, to your point, I'm familiar with the grant application. I assisted Bill with the senator's office going after that money, so I'm familiar with what he's trying to do. And again, we don't know the full blown history of it, but Matt, Jeremy, and I certainly can see that this has always been an issue. Just the topography speaks to that, of this area of Dewey, especially at the end of Reed. But what Jeremy said is accurate. You can put a submersible in there, you know, it could be sized to pump, and you could pump to your heart's content. If you don't shut that off to keep the bay from coming back in, it's going to run continuously and never go anywhere. You're just going to recycle the water. What you need to do is think of it this way. When you have high tide in the bay, those valves shut, you're keeping the bay out, and then you're pumping the rain event across, you know, beyond the closed valves back into the bay, so that you're draining the street. At one time when it recedes or the low tide comes in, that they can open up again. Otherwise, it's just gonna run and run and run and go nowhere. As far as the logistics of power and the size of the pump and all that, we have a general idea, but until the grant comes through and that actually comes to pass, with real design start happening. But you kind of feel like you're putting Band-Aids on it and trust us, Matt and I are racking our brain around this, with Bill and Jim constantly to try to come up with, an amicable solution given, what we're dealing with.
I have another comment. The twice a year cleaning, is that sufficient?
That's a minimum.
I
I
would think,
actually think it might be quarterly.
I would agree.
Yeah, so when I had Jody Bacher, he has a place in Dewey Beach, so I just had him go over there and look at the job for me. And I was pretty surprised at how much silt he came back with was in those pipes. So we always planned for twice a year. It's probably, I'm not sure when the last time we did it was. I guess it was before the summer. So you probably quarterly is probably the best practical practice, because if we go back there right now, I was talking to Jeremy about this before our phone call, we have to dig it back out again. It's already built back up, to my understanding, right there on the outfall area, pretty bad. And then once we dig it back out, then I have to clean out all those pipes, inside of it.
And I know Bill gets frustrated, and I feel bad because his comment to me the last time we met was, "You just clean those out." And I said, "Yeah, like probably back in February, March, we were down there. I know it was before May, and here we go. It's 2 of the 3 pipes are half full again already."
So the $35,000 we spent on the riprap work wasn't successful then?
I'm not sure how successful it was, how not successful it was. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, it's part of the solution. It's not the whole solution. And
Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
So the riprap gives you an area to maintain. Without the riprap and some kind of area protecting it, you would have nothing to maintain. It isolates one area so that when you do get sand, you have somewhere when the tide goes out that you can pump the sand out. Otherwise, you're just pumping the whole area. So you have it isolated so that when it's not the whole bay just washing up, it would be much worse without the riprap there. Those pipes would probably be under completely covered in sand if it was not for
you
the
would never
riprap
even
being
see
there.
you would never even see the pipes. And again, to that point, our original solution was the riprap combined with the external valves. We were asked to not put the valves in, the hold off. Let's just remove it and monitor it and see how the riprap performs. In my opinion, the riprap is probably doing its job to what Jeremy said, but it was only half the solution. The valves were never replaced or the new ones put in, and we're monitoring it and we're finding out it's not working.
And the weather dictates how much maintenance is going to be needed. So the more rain events and the more storms you have, the more sand's going to wash up into the front of those pipes. It's really something that has to be monitored, and when there's a rain event that washes sand up in there, you got to wait for the tide to go out and you got to take it back down there and clean it out.
So question for you guys. There haven't been anything at the end of those pipes since the project with Center for Inland Bays was done. So these no, they were inside the pipes before.
Yeah,
right?
they were inside the pipes.
They were inside, and I know you guys took them out. My point is, there was nothing preventing sand and debris from coming in from the bay, and there still isn't today entering those pipes, and that these valves are going to reduce the amount of sand coming in, so we shouldn't have the volume that you're seeing now in less than 4 months. Is that correct?
Inside the pipes, absolutely not. You're not going to get anything inside the pipes if the valves are there, because it's going to prevent it.
Right, but outside the pipes, we're still going to have the issue. And you're saying to clear the area outside the pipes, whether it's semi-annually or quarterly or whatever, is $16,000 to clear that out?
I don't know what the price is. I don't, Matt would have to speak on that.
That's a Matt question, yeah.
When I heard how bad it was,
16,000.
I built the price up to have the excavator out there on the site while I was cleaning it this time around. If you switch to quarterly, my hope is that you don't need to do that. I also heard that you guys can have Rehoboth come over there. There's two problems with this. A, I have to have my excavator. B, I have to have a vac truck. C, I have to remove the debris. Okay. I can't put that sand usually back where I got it from. I got to take it away. So if you guys were to clean this quarterly through a setup with Rehoboth is what I would recommend. After we perform this, I would look, get on the phone with somebody and me, if not Rehoboth, me, set up a contract where I'm out there every 3 months to vac it and clean it. But whoever comes out there every 3 months to vac it and clean it, you know, if it was us, it's probably about a $4,500 day, maybe more, because I'm dealing with the tide situation. Because when you work out at Dewey Beach, it's not like I'm cleaning and televising storm sewer pipe in the middle of a Middletown. I'm going out and I'm dealing with bay water, brackish water, and it's tidal is the problem. And I have 4 to 6 hours to work, and I got to put sandbags down, all sorts of other crap just to get a lucky day out there.
So I just want to be clear. So your $16,000 cleaning effort is the cost right now because of how big a job it is. But going forward, whether we use you or we use Rehoboth, it's a much lesser cost to do the cleanouts.
That's what you should. That's what I would think. If you set up a quarterly plan, and I don't, don't take my word for it, but the plan would be is that you're getting it before it gets this bad again. And by the way, 5 or 6 months this time around, but the change here will be that you have the tide gates installed in the future.
And on that note, you want to keep the sand out of the pipe because you have about 10 foot of pipe before it gets to that green junction box, and that's filling up with sand. Whereas with the old valves on the inside, and you couldn't see it, versus you're gonna clean it, put the valves on, and the sand stays outside at the throat of those outfalls in that recessed area that Jeremy was speaking to, which is we created like a depressed area right in front of it so that that's where you would clean. You trap the sand, keep it out. It stops there. Whatever makes it through those baffled riprap configuration, and that's what you'd vac out and keep that clear. So so when the valves are open, it doesn't enter, and B, it doesn't build up to prevent the valves from operating in the first place.
Kevin, this is Jim. I don't think we can come to a conclusion to what we want to do here today. I'd like to suspend the meeting and have a face-to-face discussion in a quiet environment. You should know that I'm wearing a cochlear implant and I'm getting terrible feedback. And essentially, I haven't the faintest idea of what you said at all to here today. So I'd like to be here close up, a room with walls that are environmental friendly I think I want to have a motion to adjourn the meeting, or no, to suspend the meeting.
Well, I would like to have a little bit of discussion, maybe just amongst us, if we could, without contractors, just before we adjourn the meeting, if that would be okay? So we can kind of go over some other things. Would that be all right? Can we do that?
I like that idea.
Yeah.
After they're finished, or after we're finished with them, I'd like to have a discussion amongst ourselves.
Yes.
Okay, he's talked long enough, I think.
Well, is it Kevin?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Dale Cook. I'm going to say my final big mouth statement here. Every time we've come to this looking for a solution for Reed Street, I've always been told, the town has always been told, it is not going to solve the flooding on Reed Street. It's only going to handle the draining of the rainwater that's flooding the street a little faster when the tide goes down. That's basically, it's not going to stop the flooding. If you don't have some kind of valve in it's gonna flood even more during high tide and rain events. Is that correct?
That would be correct, yes.
All right. In my mind, the easiest place to have that valve is at the end of the pipe where it can actually be maintained, because the biggest problem this town has ever had, and I've been involved for quite a while, the biggest, doesn't make me right, just makes me the gut feeling that the problem we have is maintenance. We spend money to do something, and then we never do the upkeep. We've got a million things going on, and we never follow through with maintenance unless we get a contract.
Mr. Cook, to that point, you're absolutely right. This is not one of those applications where you can set it and forget it. You set it, you gotta maintain it. It's like I said, you can't skip the oil change. Every 3,000 miles, you gotta come back and do maintenance. Unfortunately, that's just the topography of this area of Dewey. It's the card you were dealt. We're doing everything we can to work with what's there. And you know, our recommendation is you don't put valves on the inside where you can't see them. I mean, think of it this way. You're allowing the base sand to come into about 10 foot of 3 10-foot pipes, clogging them, preventing the valves from operating to their maximum efficiency, and then like realizing at that point what happened, like, and it's harder to get into the box to clean it versus if you just kept it out from the end in the first place. But like Jeremy said, even if you ultimately get the funding to do a pump, a mechanical discharge system like that, you still have to close off the bay to
Right.
pump out the rain. And then make sure it's functioning and keep an eye on it. Yeah, you cannot set it and forget it, unfortunately. It's not that type of area.
Are you gonna be available if we need to have a face-to-face discussion with you?
Just give me the dates, I'll make it work, but, yes, I would be available.
Thank you.
Jim, he says that he will be available if we want to have a face-to-face discussion, as long as we tell him ahead of time.
Oh, yeah, you're not gonna call him up and say, hey, come on down.
I appreciate that, thank you. And I would like Matt and hopefully maybe Jeremy, if possible, to be there with me as well.
That's
What'd you
fine.
say?
He wants to invite the other guys to come with him.
Oh, yeah.
And that would be good. We'd want all of them to be here.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what do we want to do now? We want to close you guys off from the meeting and then get back in touch with you. Is that all right with you?
That'd be fine. From what I understand, you're gonna suspend this meeting, have a discussion, and then let us know when the face-to-face will be scheduled.
Yeah, we're gonna do some discussion amongst ourselves. We may suspend the meeting, we may vote. I don't know what they're gonna do, but we're gonna talk without you for a while.
Okay,
That's good, guys. We appreciate your time though, and we're available to meet on site.
yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
Cut them off, Kate.
Oh.
So my question was, the only reason I wanted to have I know Martin's got to leave soon, a discussion about the contractor. I know it came up with one of the things that we only get one bid. We haven't bid this out to another contractor. And a few times in that discussion, they said they're not familiar with working with flaps on polyethylene pipes. And I just want to make sure that we're covering our bases. Again, another $63,000. We're covering our bases, that they actually do know what they're doing with this problem. And do we need to get a second opinion?
Sure.
Have somebody else look at it and say, well, what, maybe somebody else will look at it and say, well, you know what, you're just spinning your wheels. Or, hey, you know what, that's exactly what you need to do. I mean, I think we all know that you have to have the valves on there to stop the bay. I get it.
Right.
There's no other way around it. You have to have the valves on to stop the bay. I mean, when I looked at that, the one picture they showed with the bay, just with the manual valve that came down, that closed, looked like that would be function just as well as the other valves to me.
It
But
did to me too.
I'm not an engineer, so
It did to me as well.
I don't know. But I'm just curious if when we go through this process, do we ask another engineering firm for another opinion, that's all. And I'm sure you would know that, or Dale would know that.
So are we,
Jim, why, and maybe David knows, I don't know, but how did we end up with just narrowing it down to this contractor? Was it because they were doing the work on the pipe?
I don't know.
I do not know
It's
the
like-
answer to
It's like,
whether there are, what the flexibility is as far as having choice, for lack of a better word. I just don't have an answer for you guys.
it's kind of like, correct me if I'm wrong, if Remington and Vernick was considered the town's engineer.
Well, they are, that's fair, absolutely.
Is that right?
That's
true.
probably.
Yes.
Okay, so
That's
it's the
true.
town's, so we relied upon them to,
To your point, and then they bring in other people, so you're kind of refreshing my memory a little bit on this. That they kind of do some engineering, and then they contract, and then they tend to bring in other people for what's beyond their own expertise. That is a fair statement, yeah.
well,
But I think it's a reasonable question to go back to the town staff and say, hey, should we be bringing in outside expertise to look at this problem, which we've attacked a number of ways over the years. We attacked it another way long before the inland base approach happened, right? Where we did a clean out and put flapper valves at the end, right? So,
Took one set of valves off and put duckbills on. They didn't work.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of history here. As commissioner, I can tell you, I want to, and everyone wants to be supportive, but we do need to resist the idea of just taking action to say it's just action. We've got to figure out what's our long-term solution. And I don't personally have any issue with doing something that's part of the way there while you look for a pump, to your point, right? And look for funding for a pump, for lack of a better word, right? I don't have any issue with it as long, as things aren't complete toss-aways, right? No one wants to do that. But if something's kind of gets you part of the way there and you're trying to get a pump, that's a reasonable approach. But to your point, you learn a lot, people learn a lot through the contracting process. You learn a lot when you talk to other vendors through the contracting process. That's true in just kind of most any complex procurement where you don't personally have the expertise yourself, right? So it's worth asking town staff about that, to your point.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we spoke about the Center for Inland Bays project, these guys said, well, we weren't involved in the design of that system. And that system was not designed well. And that was the cause of these problems because the valves were inside the box. It wasn't designed well. So really, all I'm trying to get across here is that we're at almost $300,000. We're back to square one. The street's flooding the same way it was flooding before any work was done. So before we jump in and spend another $63,000, I mean, it is an emergency. The street's going to flood. It's nuisance flooding. It isn't terrible. It's nuisance flooding. I mean, I experience it. It's just, I just feel like we're just going around and around in circles. And I just hope that we've got the right person that's giving us the right advice. That's all I'm saying. And it's worth another opinion, in my opinion.
Jim, can I make a statement? Or
Yeah.
I have a problem with our town manager not being able to be here, because he would have a lot of the answers that we want. I think he would.
He may have a personal reason for that too, so I'm not really sure.
Oh, I don't worry about what the issue is. I have a problem doing it without him, being able.
Absolutely.
I think that's a fair statement, because he may know some things that we are not aware of, and so,
But he does.
we can reschedule a meeting if he couldn't make it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's like I said, it's not an emergency.
Can we, does anybody know, and I think I know, but I'm not sure, can we stop the meeting, not adjourn, but Kate, can we,
Since you're not gonna take a vote, you could go ahead and adjourn, because we don't know when the next scheduled meeting's gonna be. So it's not like we can adjourn to another date. We have way too many people who we have to figure out another date that we don't have. So what I do is just say, we're not gonna take a vote today, we're gonna table this to a future meeting
that's what I'm,
and adjourn.
so then we could, it wouldn't be any problem adjourning and just table it to the next meeting.
Yeah, just clearly state you're gonna table and adjourn as you normally would.
We adjourn or?
We're gonna
Yeah,
we're gonna
And she
table the
said that's her
discussion,
recommendation, to adjourn.
to table the discussion and adjourn.
Table the discussion and adjourn.
You will have to renotice your next
Right.
get-together, okay? As a continuation of this
With
meeting.
my bad hearing here, I'd like Mr. Cook to help me with the suspend or close the meeting.
Okay, so I make a motion to adjourn the meeting, with the understanding that we're gonna get with the town manager and try to get a meeting with the developer, I say developer, the contractor, before we make any other vote, have another meeting and vote. That's my motion.
And make sure Bill can be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Meeting with the town manager.
Absolutely very important. I agree with that.
So-
For sure.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
If you made the motion, I'll second it.
Okay. There's a motion, there's a second.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All against, say nay. Are there any abstentions? That's over with.
Thank you.